This is Studio 809.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Outdoors with Hiking Bob podcast. I am your host, Hiking Bob Falcone. You can find me on my website at hikingbob.com, which has links to my social media accounts, my columns at the Colorado Springs Independent, my other podcast, my photography website, which I've just updated with a whole new gallery of just black and white photos.
Nice.
And I've actually added some more photos too in there. And I'll be adding more in the next coming weeks. I think we'll have that up and running. But if you're looking for some of your favorite photos, check them out at my website, and you can link to that at hikingbob.com. Also, don't forget, if you want to support this podcast, you can do that at Patreon and become a patron of the podcast and help support it and be rewarded depending on your level of participation, and we always appreciate the support. Helps pay the bills here. That's Patreon, patreon.com/hikingbob, and you can find out how to do that right there, and we always appreciate that. Today, joining me is my co-host, Kevin Wild Westendorf.
Hey everyone, it's me, Kevin Wild Westendorf, and you can find me on social media, primarily Facebook and Instagram at Wild Westendorf, and at my website, wildwestendorf.com.
Cool. So a couple quick things. I want to bring up some stuff from previous discussions we've had. You know, I've had this trip with National Geographic planned for 2 years now to go to the Great Bear Rainforest in British Columbia, and hopefully to see the Kermode bear, also known as the spirit bear, which is a black bear that has a genetic code that makes the fur white. It's not an albino. There's a complete difference there. And we're hoping to see that, but we're going to see a lot of other stuff. It's going to be like an 8-day trip up there. Well, I got notification the other day that the trip is definitely on. They said, make your plane reservations, which I did. And by the way, the only airline that flies into Ketchikan, Alaska, which is where I have to catch the boat, is Alaska Air. And let me tell you, they are very proud of that flight from Seattle to Ketchikan. It cost me more one way for that flight than it almost cost me round trip from Denver to Seattle on Southwest.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. Fortunately, I only have to go one way because we don't end at the same place we start.
Okay.
We end at this little island, and they give us a charter flight back to Seattle. Of course, we have to find our way back from that. But holy moly, does Alaska Air proud of that flight. Yeah. Boy.
Is it because it's going to a very remote area?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're the only airline that goes there. I imagine there's probably like some little regional puddle jumper things, but
yeah,
if you want, like, it's a 2-hour flight from Seattle there, which I'm actually surprised it's that far. I didn't think it was that far of a flight. But holy moly, are they proud of that. Alaska Air, you better live up to your reputation to being a stellar airline for what this is going to cost me. But it's quite a bit of money. But nonetheless, I am finally going on this trip. It looks like it's done. It's going to be about a month. By the time this airs, probably just about a month, maybe 5 weeks from when this airs. And
nice.
And it's going to be, I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty stoked about it. A lot of special gear I have to have, most of which I already have for this thing. Some stuff I'm renting, some specific rain gear, because the company that I rent it from will actually deliver it to the ship.
Oh, okay.
So I don't have to buy it and pack it, which it's heavy and it's weight and it's space and luggage, and running issues with air travel with how much your luggage weighs. Even Southwest, they give you free baggage, but if it's over a certain weight, they charge you a whole lot more.
Yeah.
So that'll just be delivered there for me, and then I'll just leave it there, and they pick it up, and it costs me a little bit. It's not terrible. It's actually pretty inexpensive for like some boots and some rain pants and stuff that I just don't have, and I'm gonna need it one time, and it would be crazy to buy it and try to ship it and carry it with me. So that is happening. I got the flights booked.
I'm really excited for you.
Yeah. It's like your Mount Whitney thing. I've been waiting on this for a while, and I'm pretty stoked about it. And that Jew's had my money for 2 years. So it's about time I'm actually getting to go. And one other thing, some people may have picked up on this on social media, but if you've noticed that Cole the dog isn't on any hikes with me, and haven't seen any pictures of him on trails, the poor guy is injured. He, in people terms, he has a torn ACL in his right rear leg. In a dog, it's actually called a CCL, but everybody refers to it as an ACL. It does the same thing.
Okay.
So somehow he tore it when we were on vacation down near Rye about a month ago, and I noticed he started limping around on it, and he would hop around on 3 legs and try to figure it out. And it took us 5 or 6 days to get him into the vet to get seen, and The vet figured it out right away, and then you have to get a special orthopedic doggy surgeon, and let me tell you what, that ain't cheap either.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the down payment on a new car, kind of expensive to get this surgery done. But he's only 5 years old, and it's got to be done.
Yeah.
And it's complicated because they can't take like a ligament from another part of the body and put it on there. They can't sew it back together. So, and now you hear him whining.
He knows we're talking about him.
He knows we're talking about. So what has to happen is and I know I'm going to oversimplify this, they take the top of the tibia, the bottom leg.
Okay.
They have to cut off, because what happens is a dog's knee joint there is at an angle. So when this ligament is broke, the top leg slides down over the bottom leg, the bottom part of the leg. So they have to cut the top of the bottom leg, pull it up, plate it, screw it back together with plates so that it stays even. It doesn't slide back and forth. Apparently, the surgery works really well. And I've told that the surgeon we got is the best one in Colorado to get.
Nice, okay.
But it's like when he hasn't gone on a hike with me in about a month. We were camping when this happened, and we immediately stopped taking him on the hikes because I knew there was something wrong. His pain has gone down. I don't think he's really in pain. We have these NSAIDs we give him twice a day that the vet gave us. But he hasn't gone on a hike with me. He goes around the block as much as he goes. And then when he gets done the surgery, the recovery period is like 3 months. Rehab and recovery. So this guy's not going to go on a hike with me probably until Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah.
And the problem is he knows he's got this thing because we'll go for a walk. He'll walk a few steps, then he'll pick up that back leg and hop, and then he'll walk for a few steps and do that. So he knows he's got this injury. I don't think it hurts him because he doesn't exhibit any pain, and I can tell when he's in pain. But he doesn't equate that, and then when I leave without him, he hasn't put two and two together that I'm going without him because of this.
Yeah.
So I am getting the evil eye from this guy a lot. And I'm going to get more of it when he comes back from the surgery and with pain medications and stuff. The poor guy, I feel so bad for him, but what are you going to do, right?
Yep.
It's got to be done. So an update on Cole the dog, who I've been told too that when he gets out of the recovery period and rehab, he'll be as good as new and he'll be running and they say the surgery is wonderful.
Okay,
so
nice.
Can't wait till it's done. See what happens. So, Kevin, let's talk about a topic you and I have talked about in the past, and that is access to public lands. And the hot button topic is access to 14,000-foot peaks. We've got, 58 of them, I think, in Colorado.
I think so, yeah.
A number of them are on private property with some public access. One is not. Mount Culebra down in the southern part of the state, no public access unless you pay a fee to the property owner. And the very famous DeCalibron Loop, the Four Peaks near Alma, was closed last year. And we discussed it on this podcast. It was closed because there was a lawsuit in federal court over an accident that happened on, of all places, the Air Force Academy on the Falcon Loop Trail, where a cyclist, if I remember correctly, hit a pothole in the trail and suffered some pretty significant injuries. They sued. And there was a lot of discussion about, can you sue for an accident that happens, you're out in the wild. But as it turned out, and the Air Force Academy lost the lawsuit. They ended up paying this person a lot of money because they had known about it for a while. And it was easily accessible, and they just never fixed it. But a lot of landowners got concerned because they saw this lawsuit. They saw that a property owner was held liable for an accident that occurred. And that caused the DeCalibron Loop to get closed down. And we talked about it on here, and, my opinion is that it's privately owned, and not all those peaks are privately owned, but some of them were. And my opinion is they're privately owned. People can do what they want. It's up to them. If they want to close it, then they have the right to do it. Now, do I like seeing that? Of course not. I like to see as much land as open to people. A lot of people on that. But there seemed to have been this pervasive attitude was who gave these people the right to own a 14,000-foot peak? Well, I don't know, probably the federal government who was giving away land deeds 200 years ago to get people to come out here and mine and things like that, and mining rights and stuff like that. But nonetheless, and then just recently, and I wrote about this in the Independent, they got all but one of the other peaks open there in that loop, and I forget which one's not open. And that's because that one peak is owned by like 20 people.
Oh, okay.
Or 20 private entities, whether they're business or people. Kind of a nightmare. But they got the rest open, and it was by working with them. The Colorado 14ers Initiative, the U.S. Forest Service, the Colorado Mountain Club, the town of Alma, and the property owner got together and figured out a way to get this open by limiting their liability. And what they did was Alma collects a fee that goes towards a parking fee there. That goes towards maintaining it. Colorado Mountain Club is putting in signage and helping with fencing in certain areas to keep people away from mine shafts and things like that, and doing basically like a trail ambassador program to talk to people, say, here, this is why you're allowed to go here, respect the private property owner thing. All of which made the property owner in question very much saying, okay, I'm happy with that. I'll allow access back up there. And the Forest Service, since controls the land around it, their job was pretty much just to say, yeah, dude, just take care of it. I don't know that they really are invested much in except allowing this to all happen. And that's okay, too. So they got these open because by working with the property owner to say, okay, what does it take to make this happen? They discussed it. These groups came together and made it happen. I think that's great. I think that's the way it's supposed to be. I think that's exactly how these things should be done. So let's fast forward to about a week ago. There was a guest editorial in the Colorado Sun, which if you're not a subscriber to, and I actually subscribed to it back when they were a Kickstarter. There's a lot of
that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, you remember that. So and the Colorado Sun is really a good. We'll start off by acknowledging it is a really good online newspaper that comes out every day. A couple of newsletters. They do really good work. A lot of the people there are former writers for the Rocky Mountain News, which went out of business some years ago. Some were writers with the Denver Post, which has had over the course of the last couple of years changes in ownership, and just saw their staff get cut pretty dramatically, and a lot of people there with a lot of experience and many years experience. But in any case, they ran this editorial from a woman named Trish Zornio, and she starts off by saying how she was stunned to find out that somebody can actually privately own a 14er. I don't know why that's so stunning to find out.
I'm not sure either. Yeah.
Why are we surprised at that? But okay.
Like you're only allowed to own flat land or something like that. I guess,
yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could understand why it would be unusual, because if you look at a 14er, what's the value of it as a private ownership? But, these things got into private hands many, many years ago when they were mining and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So however they got into private ownership, they're privately owned. So I guess it is unusual, but I don't know why anybody's shocked over it.
Especially, I can see it being unusual or shocking even, because most 14ers are on public land. So you kind of just assume they all are, I guess, but yeah.
That's the impression I get. I will post a link to this article. In any case, and acknowledges in this thing that, the Calibron Loop was closed, but it got reopened because of this work by these outdoor groups that got it open again. But she's astonished that large sections owned by private citizens, and these citizens can therefore decide at any time for any reason to close it down. Well, that's the definition of private ownership. They can decide whatever the heck they want to do with that. And again, I will state that I would rather see these open for public use.
Exactly.
Than that. But I have a little bit of an issue with this sense of entitlement they get from this opinion piece. That, by God, nobody should be allowed to privately own a mountain. And why do these people get to say when I go up where I can go and when I can go up there? Where do you get to say that you should just be able to go wherever you want?
There's a line she said. Let me find it real quick.
And while you're looking for that, I will talk that she does discuss the liability thing, and there is a Colorado law, the Colorado recreational use standards that gives private property owners some legal out if somebody gets hurt. And it was mostly designed around the ski resorts.
Okay. Yeah.
If somebody gets hurt skiing,
it makes sense.
You're doing an outdoor recreation. You're not going to get hurt. Now, does it cover climbing 14ers and hiking? That's where the question comes in. But anyway, you were going to talk about. Yeah, so she wants that law to be more clearly written for that. I have no issue with that at all. I think that should be done.
So she makes a line, and I get the sentiment, but the line is, it is blatantly unfair that any single citizen could hold such power as to willy-nilly restrict access to or make sizable funds off of the state's tallest, most striking peaks. I get the sentiment. In a utopian world, it'd be great if it could just be like, okay, you can only own land if you're going to actively use it for farming and ranching and such. You can't just own a massive amount of land and just have it sit there. That's not the way the world works at this time. And in my mind, I'm just like, there are so many other 14ers. Just go on those. Don't worry about it. Because then it does get messy if you start to try and introduce or pass legislation that kind of sets an arbitrary limit of what kind of land you're allowed to own. Maybe you've invested millions of dollars on a piece of land, and a group of people in a town nearby decide, actually, we want to use that for mountain biking, and then go to the state, and the state's like, all right, we're going to take that land back. And we're going to pay you $100,000 for it, even though you spend $1 million on it. Going that direction would make things extremely messy. And I feel like it would cause more situations like what happened in Granby with the guy who built that tank and just bulldozed the whole town. Because that was over land.
That was a land dispute.
I'm not saying everyone would go that far, but I'm just saying land has a very complicated history here. And it's very, very important to a lot of people who own land, and there's a deep sense of attachment. And I do believe I've read that some people don't want to give up the land where the old mines are, because federal law would require them to spend a ton of money to close up the mines and all that stuff too. And a lot of times they just don't have the money for that.
Well, we're dealing with something similar to that with this new land that the last Tops purchase we made. Not the last one, the one before that, over the Pikeview Quarry over on the west side of town by Blodgett Open Space. The city does not yet own the quarry part of it, and before the city takes possession of the quarry owner is spending a fortune to reclaim that land, millions and millions and millions of dollars, just so they can get rid of the land. If they just fenced it off and kept it, they wouldn't have to spend that money. So that's exactly what you're talking about. So I guess I have a few issues here. I would like to see every 14er be accessible to everybody.
Yeah.
I do not like, and there's hints here of the use of some kind of legislation to take property away from people or to force them to do it. That's not how we do things.
Yeah.
She talks about in here, the question remains as to what fair and equitable public access for privately owned peaks look like. In other words, is working to shore public access enough or must we do more? Like what? Like you want to just take it from somebody? And it talks about Culebra Peak, the one you had mentioned. It's in the southern part of the state. It's the private landowners limit public access, but they also charge a price tag of $150 per person to those who are let in to climb. Now, is $150 a lot of money? Yes, it is. Does it restrict how many people can go up there? It does. The landowner could be charging $550 a person.
Oh, yeah.
They could be charging $1,050 a person. But it's their land. They don't have to let anybody on there. And when you read this, and like I said, I will post this, as long as, I'm going to quote this exactly, and that's the problem. So long as these lands remain in private ownership under current law, at any time, for any reason, other private landowners of beloved mountains or forests can choose to do the same. There's nothing stopping them. This place is not just one, but multiple Colorado 14ers and many lower elevation peaks at risk of closure, steep fees. Okay, I get that that's distressing and you may lose some land, but it's privately owned. I don't understand why we somehow get to this impression that because we want to go use it as recreational users, that all of a sudden we should have the ability to force property owners into letting us on there. That just, to me, is completely wrong. And there's hints of taking land from people. And is it blatantly unfair that any single citizen could hold such power, I'm quoting again, as to willy-nilly restrict access to or make sizable funds off the state's tallest, most striking peaks? No, it's not unfair. That's exactly what they get to do when they privately own the land.
Yeah.
Now, what would I like to see would be, can we buy the land from these folks? Can we purchase easements from them so that we can get access to them? I think those are all things we should do. The agreement and the arrangement work down on the DeCalibron Loop is exactly the thing that should be done.
Yeah.
But any hint to taking land from people for recreational use is something that needs to be shut down
Real fast.
That is not how we do things. And basically what we're talking about here is the concept of eminent domain, where the government can take land from you. And she never uses those words in here, but basically that's what we're boiling down to. Taking land from people for use for public use. Now, when they do eminent domain, they just don't steal it from you. They have to pay you fair market value, but they do it whether you want to or not. And they can show up with the sheriff and force you out of your place. Eminent domain is one of those things that has to be the last resort. When you've done everything else you can to purchase land, to acquire land from a private owner, it has got to be the absolute last resort. And it should be for something that is so important. You know, you need to build a highway. You need to build a sewer system. You need to build water supply. You need to put a bridge up to connect a community or something like that. It has got to be for something so important that the existence of the community will rely on getting this project done, and as the absolute last resort. To even hint at taking a 14er, which is just a mountain.
Yeah. Where there's a lot of other those. Yeah. That's
taking it away from somebody just so you can go climb it is just completely against anything that anybody should believe in. And I know I'm going to hear from people go, I want to climb these 14ers. Well, you know what? Go ask the property owner. And if he's nice enough to let you do it, thank him. And don't be a jerk and don't leave your trash behind or anything, which is the other problem we have, of course, with some of these 14ers. People are slobs and they leave stuff up there. And I'm not talking about everybody. Don't send me your letters. I'm not talking about everybody, but we all know the people who do that stuff. They leave their trash behind and everything. But there's no God-given right to just go on somebody else's land and decide I'm going to go climb it. I don't care that they don't want me up there. They own the land. They get to do it. It's like you get to do it your house. I put up a fence around my house. I don't want you in my backyard.
Yeah.
I get to do that because I own the land. The only difference between this and a 14er is it's a 6,000 feet, not 14,000 feet. Okay. It's the same concept, and nobody would bat an eye to putting a fence around their yard to keep people out of it. So why do we have an issue with the peak? I understand the point. I mean, it's a 14,000 foot peak. It's a accomplishment to climb it. I get that, but
I looked it up on this site. I'm not sure how accurate it is, but 43% of the land in all of Colorado is public land, which is a huge chunk. Like I've mentioned a couple times before, there's a ton of other 14ers. There's even countless more 13ers and 12ers that you can still have an incredible experience, views. The journey up them is going to be amazing. And I'm also I'm not a peak bagger, so I'm not like one of those people who, if you are, that's fine. I don't judge. It's not my thing, but there are a lot of folks out there that are obsessed with they have to hit the summit of all 58 peaks of the 14ers. So I just don't get it. If you're that upset about one or two being closed down, like just go to another one. Yeah.
And I get, I'm obsessed with hitting the peaks of all the houses, the 1,000 houses in my neighborhood. I got to go climb everybody's, roof here. Yeah, I mean, I get the desire. I completely understand the desire to go and do all these peaks. I get it. It's a thing people want to do. I completely understand that. I just don't get this sense of entitlement that nobody should be allowed to tell you can't do that. Well, if they own the land, they get to do that. That's exactly what they get to do. Now, would I like to see them all allow access to the land? Absolutely. Yeah, I think it would be awesome if they did it. But some people are just not going to do it. And for a variety of reasons. Like the one peak is owned by so many different people, getting them all to agree to anything. They probably all can't agree on what day it is.
Which I believe that's the issue right now with completing the Ring to Peak which
is exactly the other thing I was going to bring up, the Ring to Peak Trail. There's that 8-mile gap on the Ring to Peak Trail. You know why that hasn't been closed? Because in that 8 miles, there are a bunch of private property owners. They've all been approached about easements, about purchasing. They've all pretty much said no. Nobody's making any effort to take it from them. Instead, they're going to work around that. And there have been, I don't know the specifics, but I know that there are ways around that. They have been worked on. That's exactly what should happen. Let's work around this. Here in Colorado Springs, as you know, I'm on the TOPS working committee. It is a committee it is a tax fund whose main purpose in existing is to acquire land for public use. You know what we're not allowed to do? We're not allowed to take it. We're not allowed to use eminent domain. We can only get land from people who want to sell it to us and sell it at a fair market value. And that's all we're allowed to do. So, we have that fund in place, but even then, we don't take land from anybody. If the person doesn't want to sell it, we're done. We don't take it from anybody.
Well, it's like when they rerouted the trail up in Green Mountain Falls, they didn't just say, screw you, to the landowner that the trail accidentally went through. They just built around it.
Well, they bought the land.
Oh, they did?
They did that. Now, on the Horse Thief Park Trail, they actually found a way around it.
Okay.
On the Horse Thief Park Trail, it was a very small thing, but that landowner didn't want the trail going on their property. Tried to work with the Forest Service. They were. My understanding was being unreasonable. I don't know that to be true, but in any case, it wasn't going to happen. So they built the trail around the private property. Okay. In the Green Mountain Falls thing, a foundation bought the property and then let the city keep their trail on there. That's fine too. That's the way it should work. Well, this is recreational use, and nobody cares more about recreation than I do, than Kevin does, than most everybody listening to this. But recreational use is not the same as building a highway, building a hospital, building a water treatment plant, building a bridge. It's not the same thing. It is, this is recreational use. We should never be taking land forcibly away from people or forcing them to allow people on it when it's strictly for recreational use. And I guess that's the thing. And this Trish Zornio was a candidate for U.S. Senate. And I have no opinion on her candidacy. I don't even recall that, but I have a concern. Was a 2020 candidate for the U.S. Senate in Colorado. I have a concern for somebody who is running for political office, who is making a stand that we should take land away from you.
For recreational
purposes. I have a real concern about that. I have no idea if this person is running for office again or anything.
I don't know anything about her.
Yeah,
so.
But that's concerning to me that we have somebody running for. And, everybody listening to this knows we don't get talk politics except politics related to outdoor recreation. So
yeah,
I don't know anything else about our platform or anything else about what it ran on. I don't remember. May not have been for our our part of the state, which is why I don't remember. But I would be concerned about anybody running for a federal office whose thing is going to be, I'm going to take your land away so I can go climb a mountain. I'm not sure that's really the platform I would run on if I was a candidate for office.
Oh, because that would piss everyone off, I think.
Well, the problem is it wouldn't, but it should.
Huh, okay.
Because there's going to be a lot of people say, no, take it. I want to go climb that 14er.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
But I know what you're saying. I know where you're coming from. The problem is it wouldn't piss off a lot of people, and it should piss off everybody to do that. I even have a hard time with eminent domain for a lot of things. I mean, the government taking away your land is got to be the last resort.
Which I'm not sure if they used that for this, or if they finally came to an agreement with the landowner, but I know that's a part of why it's taking forever for powers to be extended out to 25, because there's a piece of land there, and the owner is like, I'm not selling this, but that's what I heard years back, and then they've since come to an agreement or something. But
usually the agreement is just keep up in the amount of the check you're going to write, and finally we'll come to an agreement.
Yeah.
And as a taxpayer, of course, that's worrisome. But as that's the way we do things. If you want it and it's privately owned, you pay for it, or you don't pay for it. Even with the TOPS program, if we get a piece of land, that's presented to us, that can you purchase this land for an open space, If the person is asking above fair market value, then the answer is no, we're not going to pay more than that. So, it's all a matter of priorities. As much as I love recreation and seeing more and more space open, and everybody listening to this podcast can be on the same page with that, you have to prioritize things, and this is not as important as a new fire station, a new police station. And even then, we just don't do that. So the idea that somehow there's a sense of entitlement that we're just going to take land away because I want to climb that 14er, and by God, how dare you own that peak and not let me up there? I don't know, because they have a deed to it and they can do that.
One thing I think is really cool that I've seen a lot of examples of is someone putting it in their trust or will or whatever to give the land to the city or the state once they had passed on. Because I believe that's how a few of our state parks have started, like Golden Gate Canyon State Park. And I'm not sure if it's every case with you have to wait until the person passed on, but I do know that's been the case with some of the land out there. And I think that's a great idea. That's
actually how a lot of land that's used for recreational purposes does end up in the public domain. People, families, the farming business doesn't work out for them. They want to get rid of it. That's how, Palmer Land Conservancy does a lot of stuff with that. There's a lot of those conservancies that do that. And a lot of times those things are so specific, you can only use it for recreational use. And by recreational use, they get very specific. You can put trails on it, but you can't make a playground on it. You can't pave a parking lot on there. Sometimes they're very specific. Sometimes they're not so specific. That is often how land ends up in public domain, where then people can go and use it. Sometimes it's after somebody passes on, they leave it in their will or trust or a deed or something like that. Sometimes it's not. There's just all different ways. Cheyenne Mountain State Park was a ranch.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
for a long time, and that ended up in the state's hands because the water dried up in there. There's no water in that park. If you've been there, there's no water in that park. They couldn't sustain farming anymore. They couldn't do it. Like any other land, it was either going to be sold to a developer, but it ended up going to the state and making a nice state park out of it. It's since been added on with purchases and stuff like that. But a lot of time that is how land ends up, because the state doesn't have a fund to just go out and buy land.
Yeah.
They don't have a TOPS tax like we do here, or Douglas County has a similar thing. And even then, you couldn't afford to buy the thousands and thousands of acres that we're talking about in a lot of cases. So that is a lot of times how land ends up in state hands, or, in local government hands too. So, Cane Ranch down in the south part of the county, that's the newest county park, was just land that was deeded back over to the county to use as an open space. And it was very specific. There's a reason why that piece of land is going to look like that for a long time, because they were very specific rules as to what can be done with it. All of it dictated in the deed that was signed over to the county.
Okay.
But nobody took this land. Nobody came in there and said, we're going to take the land and we have a right to climb it, or we have a right to hike on there. I guess I'm just concerned about that sense of entitlement. I understand a desire. I would rather see all this land be open to public access in some manner, whether it becomes publicly owned or easements or whatever else has to happen. I would rather see that. Obviously, more land we have for public use, the better. I just don't like this. We're just going to take it from you. We're going to find a way to make you give it to. No, that's not how we do things, and shouldn't be the way we do things.
Exactly.
And I just wanted to bring up, because I thought this was kind of I thought this had gotten past us, but boom, there's another editorial from somebody running for U.S. Senate who's shocked to find out that land's not all publicly owned. Really? And you were running for Senate where you have to make decisions on this?
It's so weird to me.
That uninformed? You didn't know that? Really? Okay, fine. Maybe you should do a little more homework. In any case, Kevin, you got anything coming up that you want to talk about real quick?
No, I've just been annoyingly busy over the weekend, so I haven't really gotten a chance to do some big hikes since Mount Whitney. But I'm going to really try and do that for the next 2-3 months, though.
Slacker.
Yeah, big time.
Obviously, I'm kidding. Yeah, I've actually been really trying to get out more often. The one thing if there's a slightly positive thing about Cole being injured, and trust me, there's no real positive about that. The poor guy, can't do what he wants, but is that there's a lot of places that I want to go hiking that I can't take him. Like today, when the day I'm recording this, I was in Roxborough State Park. One of the park that has more restrictions than you normally see. No dogs, no bikes, no off trail use in that park. But I can't bring him there. But I like going there. And it's been a couple years since I've been there. But today I went over there and I hiked up Carpenter Peak, which is a really nice hike. And I've been going to other places where traditionally you can't bring the dog. And I can always leave him home anytime. But I would rather go hiking places where I can take him and he gets to enjoy it. So now I've kind of gotten out. Well, he can't go with me anyway, so now is my chance to go to all these places that I'm not allowed to bring him. Florist and fossil beds. They can't bring dogs there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. No dogs allowed there. Very big signs at all the gates.
Yeah.
Very big signs. So it's given me the opportunity to go to some places where I can go without the guilt of leaving Cole behind, although don't tell him I don't have the guilt because he looked at me and it gives me the guilt. But in any case. So, I think that's all I got. Kevin, do you have anything else?
I think I'm good.
All right. Well, Kevin, thanks for being here. And we'll probably, I'm going to be on a camping trip when you hear this, I'll be halfway through a camping trip.
Oh, nice. Where?
Hopefully some new adventures down the southern part of the state.
Cool.
Way, way down where you could throw a rock from Colorado to New Mexico and vice versa. I'll probably be doing that just so I can say I threw a rock at one or the other. And I've been down there before and found some really nice lakes to hike to, but there's still some places I haven't tried yet. And I'm going to try to look for some place on the New Mexico side too, and maybe do a little hiking down there. So I'll only be down there for a few days. So if you only see me do like one or two hikes, and don't be surprised, it's, I only had a few days down there. But in any case, that's where I'll be by the time you hear this. And this weekend is the Starlight Spectacular bike ride in Garden of the Gods.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
It's back after a couple of years of hiatus due to, some virus that was going around.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. I don't know. It's back. It's only in the Garden of the Gods. I kind of miss the old days when it was all through town and it actually started at midnight.
Yeah.
But I understand the logistics of that were getting expensive.
Okay.
They had to hire half the police department for traffic control and stuff like that. But I do miss the old days when it started at midnight and you went through town and you came back and you got done at 4 o'clock in the morning, had a pancake breakfast. That was fun.
Oh, nice.
It's still fun. It supports the Trails No Open Space Coalition, who I love, and if you haven't signed up yet, by the time you hear this, you could probably sign up at that day and go for a bike ride. Bring your family. You can walk it too. You don't have to bike ride it. You can walk it. Now that's all in the Garden of the Gods, and have a good time. And it's always a fun party atmosphere down there. So it'll be good. All right, everybody. With that, we'll say goodbye, and thanks for listening.
We'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Before you go, did you know you can rate and review our Studio 809 podcasts? That will help us because our egos really need to have thousands and thousands of listeners. But that helps our wonderful sponsors reach more ears too. And we do love our sponsors. So just go to Studio 809 or any individual 809 podcast in your iTunes or podcast app and click on ratings and reviews. Thanks.